Thank you for joining The Right Dose. We will take a trip through the science behind pesticide use in Florida agriculture.
Our goal is to educate pesticide applicators and the public in the critical areas of integrated pest management according to Florida regulations.
So, sit back, relax, and put your learning hat on as we discuss the right dose and how we can positively impact our environment, our economy, and our communities.
This program is the product of a collaborative effort between agriculture extension agents and specialists from the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Science. Thank you guys for watching another one of our chapters, chapter 9 of The Right Dose. This is the final chapter before you go and take your exam. So hopefully this is going to be the last time that you're going to be watching us on video or listening to us on your podcast. The title of our chapter today is Pesticide Application Procedures. What procedures we have to take into depending on the pesticide, what the label says that we have to do with the pesticide. Basically, we've been talking about the label is the law. So applying the pesticide in the way that the label is telling you to is extremely important. Just to safeguard that you're applying the right amount or the right dose of pesticide, you have to read that label and then abide by the label instructions. Today we have AJ Paulillo with us. We got Lourdes Perez and Luis Rodriguez. Of course, my name is Jonah Bosques. We are all agriculture agents for the University of Florida IFAS Extension, and we have developed this 9 chapters for you as a complement to your study guide, applying pesticides correctly. And of course, we have classes that we teach on the core and private applicator and other categories. Thank you, Luis, related to restricted use pesticides in Florida. So let's talk about pesticide applications. The first thing that we have to do when we are applying pesticides is looking at the equipment and then making sure that we are calibrating that equipment. So let's talk a little bit about calibration. What is calibration?
So calibration is when you're working with your equipment, and what you want to do is ensure that your equipment is putting out the rate or the amount of the pesticide or mixture that you are anticipating it to do for that application. So basically, it's the process of measuring and adjusting the amount that your equipment outputs for the rate of the pesticide in a specific area.
So if you're not calibrating correctly, what you're doing is?
You could be over applying or you could be under applying, which, as we've talked about in our previous chapters, if you are applying more than you're supposed to in an area, number one, you're in label violation. You could be if your rates are more than the maximum. You're wasting money for sure. You're putting more chemicals in the environment than is necessary for the application. And then if you're under applying, your pesticide application is not going to be as effective because you're not applying the recommended rate. And you can also run into some pesticide resistance if you're applying a sublethal rate.
And as a reminder, we're usually applying the pesticides for other people. Mm-hmm. And the average person out there does not understand how these chemicals work. Mm-hmm. So that's extremely important for us to understand that calibration is our calling card. If we are under applying and we have to reapply, then our reputation is on the line. All right, so Luis, can you lead us on the discussion regarding the application tools sprayers, etc., that we're using, how do the correct application tool translate to the success or failure of that application?
So the first thing I'm going to be talking about are going to be our sprayers, and that's the most common way to apply pesticide either on crops or the landscape. Most of the sprayers that we apply are basically a mixture between the pesticide and some kind of water carrier. So that's why we use mostly sprayers to do that. Sprayer has different parts. Most of the sprayer will have that tank, and then we have a pump to move around that pesticide, and then we gotta have the nozzle, which are basically the ones that provide the output of that pesticide.
And inside the tank, there's an agitator sometimes.
Depending of the type of pesticide that you want to apply, you will need some kind of agitator. And basically the label is going to tell you that you actually need constant movement of that pesticide, so it doesn't settle away. So you can actually apply a uniform mixture to that area.
Awesome.
So basically you need to make sure that all these components are working properly, that they're not broken down, they don't have any kind of crack and stuff, things like that. So again, as Aja talked, that's part of the calibration process to check that that equipment is functioning correctly. And to add about that, in Florida, it is illegal to apply pesticide with a faulty equipment. So if your equipment is not completely functional, then basically you are applying pesticide with faulty equipment, and that's basically against the law, and you can get a fine depending on the situation. So it's really important to check that your equipment is functioning correctly.
So a leaky hose can be a hefty fine.
Yep. Basically, you are adding extra pesticide into the environment unnecessarily.
And potentially exposing somebody on your team to unnecessary exposure.
Exactly. So basically, you're not just contaminating the environment, you're also wasting money because you're wasting pesticide as well. So the other most common way to apply pesticide are going to be your granular applications. Basically, we have two ways of applying these granular applications: we drop spreader or spread spreaders, or rotational spreaders, which is what we call them. Depending on the situation, you're going to be using one or the other. Basically, the rotational are easier if you want to apply pesticide in a bigger area, but there is not going to be a uniform way to apply the pesticide.
So you're broadcasting that application.
Basically speaking. And then for the drop sprayer, it's going to be a more uniform way to apply this pesticide. And if you want to have a better precision in your pesticide application, it's better to use your drop sprayer. Important that if you are in a landscape, make sure that you're just applying your pesticide in the lawn or in the ornamental plants, depending on what you're doing. If you need to apply pesticide near a sidewalk, that you can actually add a shield into your spreader. That way, the pesticide won't get into the sidewalk, and then it will remain into that lawn or into that bedding plant.
And some of the spreaders have that shield already.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go now to the application methods. This is a compilation of most of the application methods that we commonly encounter out there. And we're going to be dividing them in categories, or, each of our speakers are going to talk about, certain amount of them. Okay, Lourdes, can we start with your application methods that we're going to be discussing?
Yeah, we're going to briefly mention some of these and briefly mention what are the difference between each. So I will say band application. It's basically applying the pesticide in a parallel strip or a band. Basal application basically just directs to the lower point of the brush or the tree. Broadcast application, it's a uniform application to an entire area. And foliar application directs the pesticide to the leafy parts of the plant that we're applying.
And you can find much more information by studying chapter 9. Let's go with the next ones, Luis.
Yes, I'm going to be talking about the applications that are directly into the soil. There's different ways that you can actually apply pesticide on the soil. Basically, the first one is going to be soil application. It's just applying that pesticide directly on top of the soil. Then you have soil incorporation when you apply that pesticide and then you incorporate the pesticide within the soil, like moving the
So
soil.
you're mixing the soil.
Mixing the soil with the pesticide.
Mhm.
Then you have soil injections, which is basically, the name said, is do an injection with pressure to the soil. Basically, you put an injection into the soil, you release it with pressure, and then it will get incorporated into the soil.
Okay.
And then we also have tree injections, which is the same thing as a soil injection, but then directly into the trunk of a tree. And basically, you surround that tree with multiple injections, and then you apply that pesticide.
It's like an infusion.
Yes. Yes.
That goes inside the tree. All right, Aja, what are we missing here?
Okay, so some of the last methods of application that we can talk about are cracks and crevices application. That would be used a lot when, of course, you're in an enclosed area, such as maybe a greenhouse or a silo, that sort of thing, where you are applying pesticides to cracks and crevices that would potentially be openings for pests to enter into that structure. And then we have space treatment. That would be, again, like a fumigation of like a home, or maybe fumigation of crops, right? It's like in a confined space and area there. Then we have direct spray applications and spot treatments. So they're kind of similar. The direct spray, you're really going to be going after that particular pest, like maybe you see it and you're spraying it, right? Where the spot treatment, you're kind of going around to different areas that you have known issues, and you're just making these spot treatments to specific areas to try to control a pest.
So I'm thinking of direct sprays, you're controlling a wasp nest. So that's a direct spray.
Mm-hmm.
When you're spot treating, you have spots where you have thistle in a pasture. So you're going with your ATV and individually spraying each plant.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in a broader area, I guess, that you're doing that spot treatment.
Yeah, I think that's how you can look at it. I think they're very similar, but yeah, I think that was a good example of what you said.
Yes. All right, so this concludes chapter 9 of our study guide. Again, if you have more questions, please contact your local extension agent. We told you this at the end of every chapter. We are paid to help you to dissipate some of the questions that you have, to bring you some answers, to give you the education that you need. We also do field visits. If you are unsure of what pests you are dealing with, we have the modes for you to identify that pest, and then with that information, you can then select what type of pesticide application, formulation, etc., that you're going to need to control or manage that population. Again, our Applying Pesticides Correctly book you can find online. You can order your copy. We highly recommend that you study up on the core book before you come into the office for a test. This is very important. We are developing this series of audio and video study guides for you as a complement to the study of this book. So it does not exclude or substitute the information that you can find in this book. Again, we are there. Your local extension office is there in all of the counties in Florida. So be sure to locate us in your vicinity and pay us a visit. We have, with this, we are concluding our video series, audio series as well. And remember to contact us with any questions. This has been The Right Dose. Thank you for listening to us and for your support. See you later.
Thank you.
Good luck on your exam.
The brands or trade names mentioned in this episode were used under the intention to provide education and not for marketing or promotional purposes.